Qué risa.
So, what resources do you use as a bilingual teacher? In the sense of like books and websites and things like that.
Currently working in a regio school, I try to stay away from, well, we don't use actual textbooks, but going back into my experiences in Texas as a bilingual teacher, I used the textbooks provided by the state. I would use a website called Teachers Pay Teachers a lot. Pinterest for ideas. It's hard because you can't find many resources in Spanish. It was easier living in a border city and going into Mexico and being able to buy authentic literature, because sometimes even though it's in Spanish, it's not authentic.
Yeah, it's translated directly.
Exactly. It's not the same. So back then in Texas, it was easier living in a border city, being able to go into Mexico and get actual authentic resources. Now it's harder. I have to. I have to buy things online, order them. I still use Teachers Pay Teachers and Pinterest for ideas.
And where do you go like online? Like where do you usually find your materials?
Well, like I said, Teachers Pay Teachers. I use that a lot. That website. I use Amazon a lot for materials in Spanish. I think those are pretty much the websites that I go to.
And then when you were teaching in bilingual setting, did you rely a lot on Common Core? How did that work? Was there Common Core in Texas?
Yes, it's the same. They're called the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills. So we would have to follow them. So we would have to, yes, they're like expectations, what the students are expected to learn. Depending on the setting, I worked in two different settings. One was a transitional model in which the students were expected to transfer to English. And then I worked in a dual language setting in which they were, the goal was to preserve Spanish, but also it was dual immersion, in which native Spanish speakers and native English speakers were being immersed in the. So depending on the models, that was the different skills. But yes, we had to follow the TEKS, Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills.
Okay, and then how did you know to balance out between English and Spanish? Like how would you balance it out in your lectures?
It depended on when I had the dual language. There was a time and a specific time in the schedule for English and Spanish. So I had to do it. For example, it was a half day in English and half day in Spanish. So, and then we would switch the subject. So for 1 week we would have in the morning, for example, math and science in Spanish, and then in the afternoon language arts in English. And then the next week it would switch so that we would get all the subjects in both languages. And excuse me, when I was in the other setting, which is a transitional model, and I had students that were Spanish speakers and they were beginners. They didn't speak much, if any, English. So I couldn't actually teach in Spanish. So I had to use a lot of total body response, and when I had to use Spanish, it would be like to clarify instructions. That's how I was allowed to use Spanish in that bilingual setting, in the transitional model where they were expected to learn English.
So it's all depending on the program in the school.
Yes, exactly. Yep, depending on that.
Okay, and then when you were teaching in Spanish, like literature and writing, what resources did you use? Did you use like Fontes and Pinnell, or what textbooks or what?
Oh, they were called tesoros. Tesoros de la lectura, which we had them in Spanish and English. So it would be treasures in English, and then tesoros, which is what I was telling you, that it's nice, but it's not as authentic because they're like translations. It's not authentic literature in Spanish. So those are the resources we had available by the state, was tesoros. I did use here in Michigan before I worked at a retro school, I used one called Senderos, Journeys in English, Senderos.
So what did you say you use here in Michigan?
It's called Senderos, Journeys. It's I think it's by Pearson, I don't know. But that's the one that I used here when I was for just a little bit at a school teaching 5th grade in Spanish.
Okay.
But in Texas,
¿Dónde va esto?
Okay, I think that's everything. So you said, and then Common Core, did the Common Core follow like the same as English regular classes, or was it different for bilingual students?
it was different because depending on their level, so they had different, in Texas they had different bilingual classes. So for example, there were when I taught 5th grade, there were 2 bilingual teachers, myself and another teacher, and I taught the class that had beginners to intermediate English speakers, and she would teach. So it was different because they couldn't be expected to how do I put it, to perform the same on English tests. So the skill sets were different. What they call here the Common Core were different. Yes. So instead of, for example, in the other class or in an English only class, they would be expected to write maybe an essay. In 5th grade, divided by paragraphs and with intricate detail. But for the beginners, that can't, that it's not possible. So yes, they did change though.
And then when it was teaching English, did you teach it, were you certified in ESL in order to teach them in an ESL kind of setting?
Yes, so my Texas certification is in bilingual and ESL.
Okay.
With specifically in Spanish.
Okay. I think that's everything. Thank you.
Thank you.